Hey, everybody, Dave Hagan here. Today, we're going to talk about making more side money. That's today on the Financial Wellness Podcast.
Welcome to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. Here is your host, financial problem solver and talk show host, Dave Hagan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Financial Wellness Podcast, TFWP, as we like to call it. This is episode 423, Making More Side Money. And look who's with us today, back again for a break from his studies, Nick Appel. How you doing, man?
Hey, Dave. Good to be here again.
I'm so glad you're getting a little bored and it's getting a little tedious because it has you come back home to where we love to have you, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm speechless.
Remember it, and I've told you this. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Just keep on plodding, and you get there. What are you, about a month away?
Yeah, a little
about
bit
3
less.
weeks, 4 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, a little bit less. I'm just keeping up the hustle.
Sounds good. Yeah, I love that. That's what we want to talk about today, a side hustle. And as many of our listeners know, we've always talked about this concept of a side hustle. Go back to episode 126 from July of 2018. Hard to believe that we've been doing it since then, huh, Nick?
It's incredible, Dave. We I feel like every time we always speak about it, but that's because I go away for an extended period of time, and it's always just fascinating and interesting how, we're still alive after many years.
Yeah, you can go away, you can come back in, plug back in, and I don't know, it seems to work. But we talked about a side hustle mostly from an income perspective when we've talked about that in the past. But I think that a side hustle could also be considered income from renting things or selling things or your stuff, even, for that matter. I mean, yeah, there's Craigslist, there's Facebook Marketplace, but is there something better? Is there something that brings this all together? Well, I found it. Check this out. Sidehustle.com. Spelled SIDEHUSL.com. It's put together by Kathy Kristoff. She's a longtime personal finance columnist in the LA Times. I think she also works for one of the personal finance websites, one of those, Nick, that's almost as good as what we do. And she's created this sidehustle.com website. And yes, it's a place where you can connect for side jobs, but also renting your stuff, your house, your boat, electrical equipment, cameras, whatever you got. Also for selling your stuff. It's all together in one place. And it lets you sell or generate income from extra time or extra stuff. So for example, take stock of what you got sitting around out in the garage. Stuff that you don't need. For me, it was like this big old subwoofer. I mean, it must have been 24 inches across, this big old subwoofer. And I got a new one that was more efficient and smaller. And I never sold that subwoofer. And I should have just let someone else take it, use it, and keep a little bit of cash off of it. But I didn't. And it costs to store stuff, whether it's lost opportunity for other stuff in your garage or whether you're actually taking it out to a storage facility. I mean, think about this, all the storage places that you see, and a lot of them just have stuff and junk in them, and people are actually paying to store their stuff. Why not just sell it? Why not let someone else use it? Why let it get stagnant and old? Turn it into cash. Let someone else have a chance to use it. Now, to sell stuff, it used to be kind of difficult, or to rent stuff. It used to be difficult. You put an ad in the newspaper and you wait for someone to call, and it was costly and it took time because you had to talk with potential people and you had to describe it, and you could email them, not email. This is before email. You could mail them pictures and all those different kinds of things. And now it's so much easier. I mean, the pics and the descriptions are all online. A good website can even clear the calendar and collect the money. It's amazing how much easier it is to do this. In fact, so easy that some of these places like VRBO and what have you are creating an issue that's kind of called STR, short-term rentals. And in a lot of vacation spots, there's a lot of backlash because these websites are able to move people in and out of these places so quickly and so efficiently that it's created really a stream of people coming in and out of a neighborhood that used to be quiet, and it's causing some problems in some circumstances. But Side Hustle's got this all together in one place, and that's kind of nice. I encourage our listeners to check it out at Side Hustle, spelled HUSL, .com. It's pretty cool. Even Fiverr as a place to get side gigs, and we're going back to creating income from your time. I was looking at Fiverr. Actually, I was looking at the website Make It, which is the NBC personal finance page. But they were referencing in a video a young lady named Alex Fasulo. And check this out, Nick. She's 26 years old, and she's been at it for 5 years. And she's ghostwriting books. And she quit her main job because she was making so much money ghostwriting books. Age 26. What do you think she's bringing in a year?
A random guess, Dave. $125,000.
$378,000 was her last year. Can you believe that? Ghostwriting books. That's crazy
it's
stuff.
Incredible.
Crazy stuff. Through Fiverr. She wakes up, sits down at her couch and, does her thing. And yeah, she's probably a little more efficient than the average bear. But can you imagine that? And we're not even talking about side income at this point. This is her main income. There's several videos on the Make It website talking about people that are just killing it on Fiverr. Apparently people that are designing websites, people that are ghostwriting, people that are editing text and making a living.
And Dave, this is why this might be a tangent, but this is why I'm a big fan of trade school. When you are good at what you do, there's no limit as to what you can make.
Absolutely. And you get on a place like Fiverr, or you get on one of the sites that you get to from this website that we're talking about, Side Hustle, and you're able to, and if you get good reviews, if you do good stuff, of course, the premise or the baseline on all of this is you got to be good at what you do. You can make a living. Or if you design your life where you're living within our principles on your day job and you're doing just some of this at night, wow, what do you do with this extra money? Wow. Seems to me the majority of it, the vast majority of it, goes into your savings and you invest it. So you're basically buying some future income so that you can get to a point somewhere down the line where you are financially independent.
But Dave, I think the best part about Fiverr and other freelance contracting work is you can do it from anywhere. You can go to Hawaii tomorrow, write your book on the beach, or ghostwrite the book on the beach.
Right.
You don't have to be in your home.
Yeah. Don't tease me. Can we do the podcast from Hawaii?
Are you paying, Dave?
I would tell you, yeah, I'm in the studio and we're doing the podcast and you'd believe it, except for all of a sudden you'd hear someone yelling out in the background, check out those waves, dude, cowabunga. And then I was pulling your leg. I've thought, for years it would be great to be able to do that and have a little cardboard cutout, of a suit coat and a tie. So I could sit down and can consult with people and sit behind this cutout and go, yeah, I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm doing this from home today. And I could be anywhere in the world. I could be in Hawaii. I could be at Lake Tahoe. I mean, would that be the life or what?
Well, Dave, all you need now is just put a green screen behind you, and then you can just put yourself well, not in Vegas, but you can just make it a nice office.
Yeah. I got one of those screensavers from the Vegas Convention Authority, and they were handing them out for free on a website. I thought that's cool. So I had the Bellagio fountain at night behind me, and I was participating in a couple of Zoom calls with like the homeowners around where we live, and I just thought that would be a good way to stand out and da 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 da. And a couple of days later, I'd see someone, and I would say, well, did you appreciate my insightful analysis on that issue? And they go, oh, were you there? And I go, yeah, I had the fountains behind me. Go, oh yeah, I remember that. So the screensaver was outshining my personal insightful analysis, But I think it's possible. This stuff can be done. And I'm thinking more and more, Alex Fasullo, she's age 26, making $378. That's a pretty good lifestyle.
I would not complain. Put it that way.
Not at all. Now, for our listeners that are out there thinking about this, a couple things to think about. Just a couple of beware kind of things. One is taxes. If you're rendering services out there through Side Hustle, through Fiverr, whatever, potentially, and I don't want to provide specific tax advice, but that could be considered taxable income. So make sure that you keep track of that. Make sure that you do your withholding tax and all the things that you need to do, because as we all know, if you don't pay taxes, your uncle is not all that forgiving. But you know what I didn't know, Nick, when I was reading an article on Side Hustle, they were saying that if you rent your house out for less than 2 weeks, 2 weeks or less, that income is not taxable if it's 2 weeks or less. More than that, you pay tax for the whole thing. So let's say let's say your pad down there, you're going to go on vacation for 2 weeks. You could rent it out, and that would be free income. That'd be pretty nice.
Interesting. I wonder what the rationale is behind that, because I feel like the government, or your uncle, as you say, wants any money as possible.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just figured that people that had vacation homes the first couple of weeks, too difficult to chase or look at, but after that, it's taxable. I think a lot of these people that are doing the short-term rentals, I don't know that they realize that that's taxable income. I don't know how many of them have a conversation with their uncle about that, but that certainly changes the decision-making dynamic. If you're thinking, wow, I make this much money renting out the place, or if I'm rendering services, or if I'm consulting or whatever, by the time I throttle that back by 30%, how much more is it really worth it?
Sure, definitely. But I think an interesting thing is, well, this kind of goes into more business, but like let's say that you set up an LLC and now you're using this LLC on Fiverr, then can you start deducting for expenses for performing this conduct and performing this work as write-offs?
Well, I don't see why not. I don't see why you couldn't do it on Schedule A of your tax return as a self-employed person.
You're the trustee, Dave. You tell us.
I'm not giving out any tax advice, but anytime you're spending money that's reasonable and necessary to generate income, that's generally a deductible kind of circumstance. And why would you not deduct that on Schedule A or on your LLC or your corporation if you could? I mean, who wouldn't do that?
Just saying, if you need a new MacBook and you need a second screen, they might be able to be written off. Who knows?
Yeah,
you would.
It's sounding good to me, but before I do it, I dial up my accountant to make sure that he blesses that. But I think you're exactly right. So the first thing that listeners want to be careful about is, make sure that you pay any taxes that are due, any taxes after your expenses, right, Nick? The other thing is insurance. I mean, if you are renting out your car, if you're renting out your boat, or your skateboard, whatever it is, make sure that you have insurance for that kind of rental circumstance, because the last thing you want to do is rent something out, someone gets hurt and they sue you, and then you don't have insurance and you're spending way more money in legal fees defending yourself. In California, you let someone use your car, you're responsible for the first X amount of dollars, even if there was no negligent entrustment issues. If you're simply the owner of a car engaged in an accident, there's liability potentially.
Well, Dave, I think it's interesting, and it's kind of off the same business premise that we've been discussing, but
Mhm.
people are renting out their pools now. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, and isn't that a great idea? Like when I was a kid, if we could have rented a pool for the day. Now, I think maybe I've got a pool. I've only had a pool for about a year, but I think that if I rented out a pool, I'd include in the cost like some, local college kid to come out and be the lifeguard because I don't want to have to deal with that.
You definitely would want to cover your behind
Yeah.
because pool and drinks and kids, not maybe adults. I just see cause for liability, but what do you know, Dave? That's the law school coming out in me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the way you're going to think the rest of your life. Poor guy. What can I say? But you could you could set up like a whole thing on Fiverr or through Side Hustle, and you could say, look, hey, you want to have a dive-in party, and you set up a screen on the side of the pool, and everyone comes floats in the pool at night, and you play a movie, and it's like a pre-packaged kind of party circumstance. Certainly if you have kids, you want to have a lifeguard, and certainly, if it's adults, you want to make sure people don't get too liquored or otherwise, happy. But other than that, what a great way to share your pool and let people enjoy that, and that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that.
I'm actually on one of the big websites. Since they don't sponsor us, we're not going to give it away. But some of these pools are going for up to $150 an hour.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I could dig that. That.
I mean, you rent it out for 3 hours. It's $500.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice little piece of coin.
Oh, yeah.
People show up, they park on the street. You set it up so they walk down the side of your house. Maybe you got like a bathroom in your house that's got an outdoor door. People could bring in a little music, bring in some drinks or whatever, and have a great little pool party and leave. I think that'd be pretty cool.
And also for the consumers, the people who want to rent it, here's a pool right here for $30 up to 15 people. So it's only $2 an hour if you have 15, you and 14 friends.
Yeah, no, that would be great. And a lot of times when you got a pool, at least what I'm noticing is the days you use it, it's great, but there's a lot of days where you just don't. It's just sitting out there, and it's I was going to say, it's burning up gas to heat it, but now it's the middle of summer, so it's water evaporating out of the pool.
Dave, it's just a side hustle.
Hey, check out the website. Are you up on your browser right now?
Yes.
Nick, just check out the Side Hustle browser. Look at this. There's a section for work, and they've got all these different jobs: accounting, animal care, beauty, marketing, every kind of job, including law. Oh my God, maybe there's a job for you there, Nick. Look, you could be getting a job when you pass the quiz.
Oh yeah.
But all these different kinds of work, all these different categories of work, all these different things you can rent. Look at this: cameras and equipment, cars, houses and rooms, parking spaces, pool and yard. You mentioned pool.
Yeah.
RV. You could rent an RV. Look at this.
That would be cool, Dave.
To rent somebody's RV.
Oh yeah. I mean, what about the round table going and venturing the West Coast? I like that idea.
I like that. Better than that though, watercraft. What do you think the possibilities would be for us to get on the boat and go out to Lake Arrowhead and do a podcast from the middle of Lake Arrowhead? That'd be pretty fun.
That would be great.
We could be taking in some sun and pretend like we're in the studio until someone hears a noise coming from the back. This is the Lake Patrol. You need to get away from the shore.
This is pretty cool. They have mock trial jurors.
Really, as one of the jobs?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Do you just sit there and listen?
Yeah.
Wow, what a deal. What a deal.
So.
What about going back to rental? Here's something I thought was really clever. Storage space. So you got a 2-car garage and you got 1 car, and someone has like an extra car, collectible car, small boat, whatever. You could rent them that space, and you'd want a pretty nice rental agreement and have it backed up by make sure that your insurance
Right.
shows that person as additional insured. But they could store their whatever in your garage, and I'll bet they'd pay 2.5. Well, I mean, that'll cover your bread and beer for the couple weeks.
Two and a half what?
$250
For a week?
a month.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in a minute, right?
I think so.
Absolutely. So when we come back next week, I don't want to see some big boat parked in your apartment behind you. I'm just saying, if you got the space, or let's say you just happen to buy a piece of property that's got some land behind it, and it's not just dirt, but there's gravel or whatever, you could store a couple somethings out there, and the people would be happy to have you store their stuff, and you'd be happy to get the income. Heck, if you had a lot and 3 people paying you a couple $100, that'd be like $600 a month. That'd be a good deal. I'd like that.
And it's really just being efficient with what you own.
Yeah. And it used to be too difficult, again, an ad in the Times or word of mouth or whatever. But now it's just such a frictionless way to do commerce. I think it's pretty cool.
Right.
And then there's a whole section on selling art and books and movies and clothing, electronics. Ooh, anything good in the electronics? Furniture. Oh, you can get used phones and Apple Watches and all sorts of good. I mean, it takes you out to a whole bunch of different sites, and they must be getting some some encouragement from these sites that are getting business directed towards them. I'm okay with that.
Of course, I agree.
I don't have a problem with that. But it's a pretty good thing. It's a pretty cool thing. It's a consolidated place to go. Something that I thought was way cool when I saw it, and it caused me to start thinking back to this concept of side hustle, or in the case of Alex, I mean, what do you call it if you're doing it full time? Not a side hustle, a full hustle?
Contractor?
I would say a 26-year-old pretty rich person, if you're making $378 a year doing your side hustle full time. Pretty cool stuff. This is Dave Hagan, and you are listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications. Let's listen in now as Dave answers some emails.
All right, Nick, you got an email for me. Hit me with it.
You got it. The email says, Dave, I just inherited some property from my parents in South America. It is the family home where I grew up. The property is worth around $750,000 with no debt. My wife and I have a home with a $300,000 mortgage. We also have around $30,000 in credit card debt. We both have jobs and make a reasonable living, but we have no savings. I would like to hang on to the house so that we can go there once or twice a year to go visit. I can't see renting it out because I don't want strangers living in my family home. What do you think I should do?
Well, here's my first thought. First of all, to have an asset worth $750,000 in another country not generating some income is a crime. I mean, it's a true shame. I appreciate the fact that it's their the family home, but if you're not going to rent it out, if you're not going to do something where that creates some kind of income, or you're not going to be able to utilize the money or value from that, I really would not recommend just letting it sit down there empty when you're only going to go there once or twice a year. Even to rent it out would be difficult, because it's difficult enough to rent out some property when it's near you. But if it's far away, it's really hard to deal with it. So I wouldn't do that. And then I hate to say it, but if it were me, what I would do is I would sell the property. Let somebody else enjoy it. Let some other family have their memories there as well. Take some pictures before you leave. Pull out your old pictures. You'll always have those memories and those pictures. But to leave $750,000 out there, not generating any kind of revenue, is just a crying shame. So I would sell the property. That's what I would do. I would move the money here. I would pay off the mortgage and I'd pay off the credit cards. First and foremost, I'd pay off the credit cards because you're probably paying an average of 18% on them. And then I would probably pay off the mortgage as well. Like I said, now you've got no debt. And I would take the rest of that money and I would put it in either a retirement account or an investment account and let that money start to grow. It would probably be maybe about $400,000. But think about this: if they're relatively young, you count up the number of, say, for example, 7-year cycles left before they're ready to retire, and the number of, and if they invest the money at 10%, the number of 7-year cycles, that money is going to compound. So let's say they're going to be working for another 20 years. Well, that's roughly 3 7-year cycles. So that 400 will double twice, 400 to 800, or actually 3 times, 400 to 800, 800 to 1.6, and 1.6 to 3.2. So in 20 years, it could be, assuming an average long-term conservative investment strategy, could potentially be, $600,000 or more. What do we say? 400 to 800, 800 to 1.6. Yeah, to $3.2 million. It could be amazing. And that's simply for making that difficult choice to give up this property. Unless you're going to rent it out, then you would get rental income. It'd be a similar kind of growth over time potentially. But I would say I would sell it, and then I would be able to think in my own mind, wow, that created a financial legacy for me to feel comfortable, my spouse and I to feel comfortable as we get a little bit older in our age, and potentially something to leave behind for my kids so that they could appreciate their grandparents' legacy. But I would not leave it there offshore. I wouldn't, even if it were onshore, I don't know that I would leave it. I would sell it, turn it into money, invest it in some conservative long-term investment strategy, and let it compound. That's what I would do. You want to throw in your 2 cents, Nick?
Sure, Dave. I mean, well, only speaking for Brian, he would say use it to go buy scratchers. But, since Brian's not here, I say, Dave, just take the money, bet it on black in Vegas.
A sound investment strategy, something that we don't even talk about. We laugh about, something we would never advise. But, the good thing about taking it to Vegas like that is it'd be gone right away. You wouldn't have to worry about it anymore.
And they would probably comp you for a night.
So true. So true. Well, I think that's about a wrap for this week. Hey, Nick, thanks for spending a little more downtime with us. Appreciate it.
Of course, Dave.
As always. Hey, everybody, make it a great week out there, and we will talk to you next week on the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Remember, Dave will randomly draw from the submitted questions and pick the winner of a free 1-hour personal conversation with Dave to help you achieve your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications, or share the podcast via the app with your family and friends. This is your announcer, Nick Appel, wishing you every financial success.